Hey, friends. I am Dr. Patrice Buckner Jackson, but you can call me PBJ. Welcome to another episode of Heart Work with PBJ, where we are disrupting cycles of burnout and compassion fatigue for overworked, overwhelmed professional women who give everything to everybody else and rarely keep anything for themselves. Friends, I have another phenomenal woman from the Heart Work community to introduce you to. But before I do that, I have a request. I need you to like, subscribe, and comment wherever you listen to this podcast. By doing so, you will help us get this message out further, faster to other people who need to hear it. So, would you do that for me wherever you're listening? YouTube, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you might be listening or watching, please subscribe, comment, like this episode, and tell us what you think. All right, you all. I'm going to lead with this bio. I'm overwhelmed with honor to spend time with this woman. So I want to do her bio justice. So I'm going to read it to you, okay? Erica Savage Wilson is a brain injury champion and the founder of the Reframed Brain. Having sustained a serious traumatic brain injury in 2021, Erica's professional and personal worlds transformed significantly. Her life changing injuries forced a year long focus that included multiple therapies, adaptations, and recovery accommodations with the support of a polytrauma medical team, family, and faithful friends. Erica is a former director of a political consulting and data management firm in Metro DC, where she spearheaded the firm's partner outreach program and led its political consulting and marketing intelligence data tagging program. She also oversaw the execution of an 18-month international campaign where she trained and managed teams responsible for reviewing and researching extensive data specific to Iraq war veterans and their impacted family members. However, Erica's crowning achievement is having served as an emissary in South Sudan in 2019 to address water access issues and being instrumental in the freeing of a political prisoner. My goodness. Erica's writing and consistent media engagement through 2021, most notably as a Thursday night regular commentator on Roland Martin Unfiltered, made her a voice of political and social commentary. Erica's creation of the Reframed Brain podcast that debuted January 2022 brings her nearly 2 decades long political expertise, media engagement, and energy into scope as she expertly centers brain health and unseen injuries. This is critically centered, especially as the ongoing global pandemic has given rise to anxiety, stress, depression, suicide rates, and mental health service demands. Erica's experience driven injuries primed her to provide expertise in creating environments of healing and wellness to individuals, institutions, and corporate structures. Erica Savage Wilson, it is an honor. It is an honor. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us today in the Heart Work community.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I always start with this question, and it means so much to me because I think we get to learn more of the layers of all of our guests. So if you would start by telling us who are you?
Mm, Thank you for having me as a guest on this most wonderful podcast. I appreciate you, Dr. Jackson. Erica Savage Wilson is a brain injury champion, a brain health champion, and a transformation coach who creates unique paths to optimize brain health. And all of that being said, it is birthed out of a experience that I have had. I was a former director at a political consulting and data management firm, and have been involved with politics for the better part of my life at the local, state, and congressional level. I live in Metro DC, so that is the heart of political activity. So being able to travel all around the world to be an emissary, to engage the way with which I engage people was really a blessing for me. And I was traveling for work last March 2021 and was traveling actually to Georgia. And I was in another state when I was hit twice by an 18-wheel truck. And that left me with a number of physical injuries, but it left me with an unseen injury, which is a traumatic brain injury. And having medical practitioners effectively tell your family and support that the high function executive that you knew is now um, effectively a toddler. And so all of that functioning that I had once before had really was disrupted. And so to go back to saying I'm a brain injury champion, a brain health champion, and a transformation coach, it is because I intimately and specifically understand what it is to have a major reset in your life as a polytrauma patient, as a brain injury person. There was no person I could look to that looked like me that I could say, wow, this is whose experience mirrors this one. It was one specifically tailored for me, so to speak. And to come out of that having 9 practitioners, therapists, and to be able to now walk, talk, read, speak, have balance, to be able to tolerate being around more than 1 or 2 humans alongside um, all of the other physical um, things that I've had to move through. It really does make me an expert in being able to say, I get it. And as we move through a pandemic that has been very unforgiving in the people that it has had meet the grave, and the people that are suffering with long-term injuries themselves, and then those who are not undiagnosed but have had to return to offices or are still working from home and managing care for parents, um, care for kids, managing their own new self because we're not the same person that we were in 2019 as we are in this present year in 2022. I am able to say, I understand that. And there is a path that I've walked, and there is a path that I can help you to create because I've done the work and still doing the work. And I have come out on the other side, not smelling like smoke. So that's who I am now. I'm in the business of transforming. And I thought I would never be able to hear myself say this, but I am grateful for every day from March 15th, 2021 to the present in 2022 to bring me to this place where I am now.
Listen, your the power that you bring through your testimony is palpable. Like we
Mm,
can just feel it. And the perspective. We gotta talk about that perspective
yeah,
because I heard you say these are not your exact words, but basically this journey was suited for you, like it was catered for you.
yeah,
And then at the end to wrap it up and say, I'm grateful for every day. And the description of this person that you know at this point is more like a toddler to what we see today. I
mm,
know every day wasn't rainbows. So
mm.
please help us understand that perspective and how you hold on to that perspective.
Dr. Jackson is literally the title of your podcast. It is hard work, and that I talked about how the brain and the heart are so intimately connected because they absolutely are. When we deal with the issues of the heart, with the central processing system, the most powerful and complex organ, which is the brain. that speaks to the heart. And when we open ourselves to doing that work, it is absolutely tough work. And to be able to be giving another moment, another day to engage in that work. And sometimes that work looks like breathing, but breathing is a fantastically wonderful exercise that we're able to do without even trying to do it. But to say that this day, perhaps I'm not able to get up and move, perhaps I'm not able to speak as clearly as I would like to speak, perhaps I'm not processing as well as I want to, but there is something that I can do that is intimately connected to my heart and breathe. And so there is something called diaphragmatic breathing where you breathe through your belly.
Mm,
So that type of heart work, that type of very intentional work is how I move. One of the
mm.
things that I share with people around the question that you asked is that even if we lay and we do nothing, we're still aging, we're still moving. There's still things that are happening within our body that keeps the process of time moving forward. So, absolutely, it was not rainbows. And to know that I intimately have a relationship with thresholds of pain that I could not ever imagine. And that the way that I was able to move through that pain because my heart continued to beat was to breathe. So I know the power, the importance, and the posture of breath. And that gives me absolute power. So that's how, to be very honest with you, Dr. Jackson, I was able to move through every day. It was literally dealing with my heart every day, dealing with my mind, and just experiencing that connection.
The way that you speak about breath and breathing, it calls me to accountability to appreciate the
Mm,
things that I take for granted.
mm,
It's so easy to get caught up and wrapped up into the things I need to do and the hats that I wear and the responsibilities that I have and the face that I need to show and all of the things that we're called to create it and thankful for, right? All the things that we're thankful for. And I can get so overwhelmed and so overshadowed. This reminder to start with breath,
mm,
to go back and remind myself, regardless of what the things might be, I can breathe. I have breath, and I've had sessions with women, Erica, where I've literally had to remind them, breathe.
mhm, mhm.
Just stop and breathe. And they don't realize they've been holding their breath.
Yep,
They don't realize they've been taking shallow breaths, just enough to survive. They don't realize they haven't had a deep breath in who knows when.
yep,
And the brain feels that, the heart experiences that, your entire body, your creative thinking, your logic, your wisdom, everything is impacted when we forget the most critical things.
absolutely.
Take me back, if you will, to prior to this traumatic accident that you were a part of, and this international stage and life that you were responsible for. How was your um, operating of life there compared to now? Meaning, was breath and heartbeat and all these things as evident to you then as it is today?
It wasn't. And what is so amazing about that is when I think about specifically 2020, because I also suffered significant memory loss. So I'm very grateful that the Spirit of the Lord has brought back much of my memory. I have not recovered all, but I resolved and said to the Lord last year, like, if you do not restore all of my memory, it is well with me.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful to be able to recall some of those things because I would meet and do a live every week, specifically in 2020, because that was a big election year,
Mhm.
especially, well, the general election and then the senatorial election in Georgia. So I was doing a lot of work. COVID, we just had COVID um, come into our shores, occupy us.
Mhm.
So there was a real kind of stillness and shifting and trying to understand the new and novel virus. I had just walked off of a Google stage here in
Mhm.
DC. It was a lot that was happening at that time. So it was boom, 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 boom. And I had just gotten back um, some time ago from South Sudan and Uganda, and was very, very happy because the work that we poured ourselves into really resulted in some foundational wins. So
Mhm.
it was just moving at a pace that was demanding, but it was something that I was used to. Had done international coverage for an affiliate in Johannesburg, South Africa, around the that next year,
Yeah.
moving into that next year around VP, now VP Kamala Harris. It was just a lot that was happening. And I can remember when I would go live, particularly during 2020, I spent that year, interestingly enough, saying to the audience before I would close out, and let's do breath work. So I would take deep breaths with everyone on the other side of the screen, not knowing that that was something that I was going to need the next year. So when I think about kind of the landscape that I kind of paved in a way, it's very extraordinary because it was almost like a preparation for what was to come. And from there to now, I had 2 cell phones.
Mhm.
Um, you had to get on my calendar, making sure people were registered, understanding the importance of the vote, what was at stake, just constant, constant, constant going. And to then move to a place where life has essentially shifted. Where being on the screen like you and I were, it was completely intolerable. There were a period of months where all I could do was color because I wasn't able to read or write for a few months. So all I could do was color. I was very, very sensitive to sounds and noises. So though I suffered hearing loss, my audiologist determined that I wasn't able to wear the hearing aids because the sound, just even the wind whispering, was too loud for me. So there was an incubation period, to be very honest with you, where it was just me and my creator. And it was like that for months and months at a time. And I had not known that level of quiet since I believe I was a child when we weren't raised watching television. Me and my sister would just spend time in our rooms reading books. And that is why I really can appreciate, though there was a great deal of pain, there were, and moving through mental health challenges, but it was a time where all that really mattered was that I was in a place of quiet. That was the most important thing, being in a place of quiet. So it has definitely shifted, and not just shifted temporarily, it shifted me to the place where I had a very strong social media presence. I was not able to be on social media for about 7 months. And so moving back into it, I'm very deliberate about what I do, but what I have carried forward from that is um, I appreciate the quiet, the very deliberate acts that I do every morning, which is ensuring that I am one with myself, that hearing from the Lord, that I am talking to my subconscious in a way that will move me, because we have no idea what the day brings forward. We have calendars, we have no ideas what idea what the day brings forward. But that first hour of the day,
Mhm.
the phone does not receive that. Nobody else gets that. That is my time, my hour, and that understanding the healing power of plants, understanding the healing power of taking naps, that the brain does need time to rest. So the shift from, as my health team has said, the old Erica, because I have to I had to grieve her.
Mm,
She is no longer, but what has resurrected, what has came forward has been such an intentional woman that is has a strong foundation and a strong work ethic and has been empowered by something that Jesus said he was intimately acquainted with, which is grief. I'm so intimately acquainted with grief and pain that it is giving me a platform. It is giving me a voice, a power that I could have never gotten from politics, that I could have never gotten from media, that I could have never gotten from any other gratifying thing that I've experienced in my life.
mm. I want to stay there for a moment and talk about that transition. Here in the Heart Work community, we talk about discovering your brilliance, your purpose, your shine, right? And we
Right,
teach that that purpose doesn't change. No
right.
matter what happens in life, no matter what comes, no matter what goes. Now your expression of the purpose, that's what we call passion. That may change. The
Right,
profession, the career, the title, the expression may change, but the
right.
purpose does not change. And I think we get wrapped up in our job descriptions and our titles and our bios, and we think that is the purpose. But I believe the purpose is deeper than that. And I believe that you are the true testimony that purpose does not change. Because although the expression of that purpose, you may not be on Roland Martin as much or doing the international work as much yet at this point or in the same way, but you are still expressing the purpose that God created you with. So would you talk to us a little bit about that transition, that pivot, and that understanding of who you are, regardless of what the expression is today?
I love that question because there's the movement of the great resignation. It was literally a great resignation from grinding and hustle and holding that up as a banner of this is how I prove my worth. And that was an ethos that I operated in. I lauded myself and I'm here, there, everywhere. And what I have come to know about the transition that I've making is that the most powerful part of me is the one message that all of those collection of experiences are not wasted. I don't believe that God wastes any experiences.
Believe that.
They're not wasted. For you to be Dr. Jackson puts you in front of an audience. Your delivery, your message is your message, right? So for me to move forward to a stage and be able to share some of the things that I've shared, but to be able to talk about the level of resiliency
Mm,
that I have experienced, and that it's not a word meant to just invalidate any one person's experience, but it is effectively about transition because
mm,
at the core, resiliency is about flexibility. And to be at a place in my career where I felt like, okay, getting ready to move to the next thing, and to be so arrested to come back and say, your next thing is not the thing that you're actually envisioning. And I want to pull you to a place where you are being reset for the transition that I need for you to go. So I've called it a divine interruption.
yes.
Um, and that interruption has really blessed me in such a way because I have become more one with Erica. I've become more one with my message. I've become um, more one with what exactly I am to do. That there is a through line with everything that I am to do. And I could not be more grateful. And I say this with great humility and understanding that all brain injuries don't look alike. People come into brain injuries so many different ways. The one that I've experienced, I am so grateful to have the experience that I've had that could bring me to a place to say, I am grateful. And this experience was not for me. This experience was for other people, for a person. And so to say, to then be able to reach the place in maturation of the heart,
Yeah.
maturation of the mind, maturation of the experience, to say, now what would you have me to do? And so that is where I am.
And I love that before before 2021, after 2021, now a common thread that I see is you using communication or giving voice to people or persons or communities who may be in the dark concerning what they're experiencing, and bringing light to that thing. You know, whether it be prisoners of war or underrepresented people in voting or people who are struggling with their brain health, that is what you continue to do. That is what you continue to do.
Hmm.
That common thread is still there. You are still giving voice and bringing light to people who need that light, through the communication. And I also appreciate you identifying the grieving process that is necessary,
Hmm.
because we don't often give honor to that. We always ascribe grief to losing a person to death, but there are so many losses that we need to grieve. I don't believe you can hold on to a new Erica without the process of grieving what your life was prior to this season.
I agree, Dr. Jackson, and I'm very, very grateful because the suite of services that I had as a polytrauma patient afforded me to be able to have the team of practitioners that I have. So I've been very transparent and honest about my process, about the fact that I had to have a suicide prevention plan put into place because you're talking about a part of the brain, the old brain that I was operating out of, that was the amygdala, fight or flight, and all of my responses would be temper tantrums, throwing, breaking things,
Mhm.
because the executive functioning, the new brain, the that part of my brain, the frontal lobe, where logic, reasoning, processing, all of that lies, that entire root system was damaged from both of those hits. And so to have this real appreciation of kind of teetering between that place of life and end of life,
Yeah.
and to have a team, a neuropsychologist and a therapist that I meet with weekly, that were able to walk me through as I partnered with them to do the work, or as they say, Erica, you're doing the work, we're merely guiding you along. But to intimately understand the brain and some of the different parts of the brain and neurotransmitters and what needs what and all of those different things that happen, I say that it is uniquely necessary for people to understand that, as you said, when we have losses, be it divorce, be it the pandemic has been a great loss, because who all of us, all 328 million of us here just in the United States, 7 billion globally, we are not who we were in
Mhm.
2019. And I don't care if our hair didn't change, if our lens prescription didn't change, we are effectively not the same people. So there is a need to recognize that, understand that, and grieve that, and
Mhm.
honor ourselves in actually doing that. And then the accepting part of, this is a new way of life. Now, to say that this will always be life, don't know, but effectively, we understand that this is a new way of life. And so I wrote about that to say that I had to do that. I literally had to grieve the Erica that I once knew and say, gosh, there's this new Erica that's here. Like, this is the one that's writing you all right now. And I'm really still having a very difficult time accepting that. And so to have um, professionals in place to be able to do that, and then to also have systems, techniques in place so that I personally can move through that, has been something that is uniquely um, wonderful and terrifying at the same time.
Mm.
It's kind of how I say to God, I was like, God, you are terrible. And I was like, I didn't know what that meant before, but for me, I feel like I know what it means. The same one that shielded me, right, and told death no, still demanded that I go through this very transformative, painful,
Mm.
hurtful, very complex transition and transformation. Yet here I am
Here you are.
on hard work talking to Dr. Jackson about that very thing.
Ah, you mentioned having systems and support, and a team. And I just want to make sure that people don't miss that, because sometimes, especially when we are facing a very fearful, unexpected season of our life, our response may be to retreat. And as you were saying, because of your injury, because of what was going on physically, you had certain reactions, and now you have more understanding of how that works. So there are two things going on there that I hear. One, we don't do this alone. You weren't created to do it alone. You weren't meant to do it alone. Isolation is not the answer. There is someone to help you. And it doesn't mean there's a weakness, it is wisdom.
That's
It
right.
is wisdom to know that there are people who have the knowledge, skills, ability, and heart to help you do the things that
Yeah.
you need to do to be who God has called you to be. And then on the other side, what I heard is the understanding that we need as helpers. Because if you didn't have people, and I know y'all here to train, but I got to keep going. If you didn't have people on your team who understood what you were going through, they may have been turned away on the throwing things days.
Right.
They may have been turned away on the days where you knew what you wanted to say, but you couldn't figure out how to express it. I can't imagine the frustration that it builds when you know what you need to communicate and you are a communicator and you cannot form that. I need to acknowledge that. But to have people who were with you, who understood enough about what was going on with you to stay with you, and to walk with you and to be right there with you as helpers. We need to
Mhm.
have enough understanding to walk with our friends, our
Yeah.
family members, whoever we serve, whatever work
Right.
that we do, whatever ministry that we do. We Let's not take for granted. Let's get educated and know enough so that we can serve well. We need to
Absolutely.
serve well. We need to care well. We need to love well. And I'm talking, sometimes our love is unintentional. Meaning, I'm
Mm.
here, I just know I need to be here. Like, I don't know what to do, but I just know I need to be here. And what I would challenge you to do is get informed.
That's right.
What I would challenge you to do is get updated. I shared with Erica right before we came on that my stepmother struggled with vascular dementia for over 10 years as a result of a stroke. And being a part of her care team with my father and my siblings and nurses and people who came in and that kind of thing, if you didn't know enough to know what was going on the inside of her, there were many opportunities to say, I'm not doing this because this is too much. But the understanding also gives you another level of grace. It gives you another level of grace. So we have to come out of the isolation and connect with the help and allow the help. But as helpers, we need to be equipped to help well and to love well.
Agreed.
And that leads me to the reframed brain. So I spent some time in the last week listening to your podcast, and I'm so grateful for
Mhm.
it. First of all, help us understand the title, The Reframed Brain.
Because that's exactly what I had to do. There was a reframing, a large reframing that happened in my life, and specifically around my brain, but perspective as well. And so, What the Reframe Brain podcast serves to do is to center brain health and unseen injuries. And brain health is not necessarily a sexy topic, but because of the pandemic, and you mentioned your stepmother who had, um, and you all shared in the experience, and she for 10 years vascular dementia that Black people are overrepresented in dementia and Alzheimer's cases. And a lot of that is because of what has happened years before. We don't sleep well. There's a lot of fight or flight because we're always on alert. There's a lot of trauma that's around us. We're community. And so, a lot of times, particularly if somebody's first generation, particularly college student, first generation, and maybe break into six figures or more, then the onus is almost expected to be on that person to care for the family. Well, they have more education, they have more resources. So, even if maybe they're married or not married, it's, yep, we're counting your wallet and we're counting the number of bedrooms that you have in your home. So, we have come to the conclusion that you can do it, and so that leads us, and then just a lot of the things that we ingest, particularly depending on the neighborhoods that we live in, the social determinants of health come in. So if the air is not quality air, it's the air that we're breathing in. All of these different factors really lead us to a place where there's an overrepresentation of a condition that I don't have to share it with you, Dr. Jackson, but for your audience, it is really aggressive. And to have a person who is themselves that perhaps lives on repeat and there are things that they forget. I just want to stick a pin in this as we talk about the reframe brain. Some of the experiences I was having early on, and I have a really good friend who would come from DC proper every day to be with me every Friday. She has a demanding job, but like when on the occasion that we would go out, she would be like right on me, holding my hand because I may forget where we are. And I've shared with people there are times when I'm walking to a door and I'm standing there not because I want to hold up anybody behind me, but I don't remember push pull, how does this open? So, what the reframe brain does is centers brain health and unseen injuries to make all of us aware because we're all being impacted by the pandemic, whether or not we have a diagnosis of anxiety, depression, stress, anxiety, depression, or if we're experiencing grief and other stressors, understanding that this most powerful and complex organ, of which there have been zero, 100, successful brain transplants, we have to take care of it. And a part of the way that we take care of it is we have to actually prioritize ourselves. And that is not selfishness, that is not being not sensitive to other people, that's not being compassionate. In everything that we do, we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first. So we have on the podcast different guests, wellness experts, professionals. We have a healthcare executive that's coming on to be talking about disparities, but what they're doing is highlighting the importance of keeping your brain in unseen injuries like the ones that I mentioned before, um, ensuring that we are posturing ourselves to do the best that we can possibly for ourselves. Because I'm going to go ahead and tell you, in the next, I'm going to say 2 to 5 years, brain health is going to be a running discussion topic, and not just amongst the academics. It is going to be a running discussion topics at one of our neighborhood grocery stores, Wegmans. There's a whole area which is like a boutique, a large boutique grocery store, but in one of the areas, there's a whole section dedicated to just brain health. So these are in neighborhoods where, people can afford to spend, $60 on three things. And there's caviar bars within those particular markets. So that's already there. We understand how this information trickles down to underrepresented but overrepresented in the prison industrial complex and asthma and all manner of diseases that do a number on the body, which are usually Black, people of color neighborhoods, trickle down last. So it is most important. I felt like it was my responsibility to ensure, as a person that looks like me, where I'm not seeing that conversation being had specifically, to bring this to the forefront, to center brain health and unseen injuries and let people know that I see you. You don't have to have a diagnosis, but I want for us to take care of our central processing system. So, no is a sentence and a word. Ensuring that we spend incredible time with ourselves every day to make sure that we're setting our day, and other tools and techniques that are provided within the podcast, creating an environment of healing. You talk about what your stepmother has experienced and how you all had to first, arm and equip yourselves. So those types of conversations, if you're in proximity of someone who has an unseen injury or a brain injury, um, everybody that was in the pandemic qualifies to listen to this podcast, because it is definitely something that is very much so necessary and hopefully preventative, but very helpful for those people who may be experiencing it or be in proximity of people that um, have a diagnosis or otherwise.
Thank you so much for bringing this conversation forward, so that all communities, especially those that may not get it very quickly, can start having these conversations, because I believe we've seen it for generations.
Yeah.
I believe it's gone without a name and without a label, but we've seen it
Mm,
in our family members. We've seen the stress on big mama or grandma or uncle so and so, and we've seen people turn to other sources because they didn't know what to do, because mental health was not a conversation. So it's beyond time now.
it
It's
is.
beyond time now for us to have this conversation. And even for the folks who listen to this podcast, because we talk to people who are dealing with burnout and compassion fatigue, and they're overwhelmed and they're overworked. And we keep
Mm,
saying, I got it, I got it, I got it, I got it. And we always say that overwhelm is the whisper, but burnout is the demand. You will stop.
mm,
Your body
mhm,
will stop. It
yeah.
will, it's not a robot. You're not superhuman. It will stop. So this self-care, and again, I'm so grateful that we're starting to have more conversations about self-care, but I'm very passionate about it not being resorted down to just a facial or just a walk every now and then or just a checkbox. This is real. You need to listen to your body, and you
Mhm.
need to be informed and educated on your social media. I heard you talking about eating blueberries one day. And
Yes,
you
every
know,
day.
yes, and these are things that we don't know. We don't
Mhm,
pay attention, but if something as small as taking a nap every now and then, eating some blueberries, taking a walk, breath work. I heard you earlier talk about talking to yourself conscious, and I connected that with affirmations. I assume that's a way that you can do that. We take these things for granted, but
mhm,
really it's medicine.
mhm,
It's medicine, and it's needed. It is
mhm,
needed for us to continue to be everything that we were created to be. These bodies are the vehicles we were given to do that.
mhm,
And if your vehicle is broken, you can't go. You can't do it.
mhm,
So we
mhm.
have to take care of ourselves. Is there one thing, and I know we've mentioned a lot of different things, but for somebody who says, I've never had this conversation before, I've never been convinced that I needed to do anything about my brain health, is there one thing that you would suggest as a starting place?
Well, I would say thank you for that, Dr. Jackson. You do. There are too many people that have gotten out of here way too early because um, they were just, their bodies were overpowered. They were tired. And so when we hear people say, well, they just said they were tired and a person has then transition expired, that's one indicator. I would say that This is the most powerful and complex organ that orders everything. And it too has a process by which it cleans. And I would be willing to bet that if um, a person is on go, 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 and if they're only getting a few hours of sleep, that the process of diffusion, which is the brain cleaning itself every night, I can imagine that it would look like, um, unfortunately, a landfill. Um, do not allow ourselves, don't allow yourself, don't allow the power of who you are to lay, rest, get up, go to sleep, get up, go to sleep, get up, go to sleep in a landfill. That is not the excellence, the divinity, the power, the beauty, the intimacy that you could have a twin and that twin would still never be you. Um, you do. And so, because it is unseen, and that's why I really underline we center brain health and unseen injuries, that because we can't see it does not mean that it is not alive and living. So, brain scans are great to get, but I would just say, starting with understanding that if the first thing we're doing is getting up in the morning and touching the cell phone, if the first thing we're doing if we're not drinking room temperature water when we get up in the morning, if we're jumping out of bed, no matter what time it is we have to be at work, that is greatly impacting your brain, and it will age a lot sooner than you would want it to. And there are going to be conditions and issues that they will have to then care for sooner than later. So I would say we are in need of this information to please, please, please start taking the trash bags from out of the landfill. Allow yourself proper sleep. 18 to 65, at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep is what the CDC recommends. Please stop looking at cell phones before you go to bed at night. Please, please, please. And take one hand, put it on your heart. Take another hand, put it on your belly, and say the sweetest things you can think to say to yourself and go to sleep. And when you wake up in the morning, before you say utter a word to anybody, before you touch a cell phone, before you do anything, if you wake up before your alarm clock goes off, or even after it goes off, take that same hand, take that other hand, put it on your belly, and you say the sweetest things that you can say to yourself. And I'm telling you, you will be better for it.
Erica, my sister, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. The things that I'm learning from you, I've never heard before.
Oh,
It's brand new, um, and it's so real. So I hope everyone who's listening will continue this conversation with you through subscribing and connecting with the Reframed Brain. And not just listen, friends, don't just listen, but do something with what you're learning. The action, the activity, that is what makes the difference. That's what brings the transformation. So you just heard right now our going to bed routine, our waking up, the what kind of rest, and what happens in our brain when we rest. I had no idea, and I
mhm.
know I'm not the only one. So I challenge you to take what you have learned today and do something about it. Erica, before we close, is there anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to say? How can people connect with you? Whatever. The floor is yours.
I appreciate that. And just for people to know that sleep is when your brain cleans itself, cleans out all the toxins. So we definitely need quality sleep every night. You can follow me on Instagram. It's at one Erica Savage, the number one Erica Savage. And I always say there's only one Erica Savage. Um, and on Facebook, if you want to follow me or send me a friend request, it's my entire name, Erica Savage Wilson. I'm also holding a virtual event, a virtual intimate event. It's a master class, May 10th, 11th, and 12th. It's going to be from 7 p.m. to 7:45. So if people want to connect more intimately around what I've shared, what Dr. Jackson and I have talked about, and you're like, I'm really interested, I want to know, it is a no cost event.
Mm.
Follow me so that you can get connected on that. Go to the reframedbrain.com, get on that email list, and that way you can be up to date on all of the updates coming from that event, May 10th, 11th, and 12th. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7 to 7:45 p.m. because our greatest asset is time, and I very much so respect your time.
Oh my gosh. Listen, you all need to sign up right now so that you don't miss that, and you need to be a part of that conversation. So make the time, do yourself a favor. Before we do, I have to give a shout out to our sister that we have in common, Dr. Wendy Wilson. We are so grateful for you in our lives. Thank you
Thank
for making this
you.
connection. Thank you for us, but
Mhm.
also for everybody who will
Yes,
benefit from this conversation, that you
yes.
thought it not robbery to connect two sisters in your life. So
Amen.
we're grateful. We love you. Thank you.
Love you, Win.
Friends, listen, I'm full. I'm so full. Anytime I have the opportunity to connect with powerful transformational women and to hear the testimony of how good our God is. That's
Mm,
all I need. That's all I need. So listen, tonight I challenge you to take some rest, but before you do, put those hands on your heart and on your belly. And I want you to remind yourself that you are powerful, you are significant, and you are loved. You really are. We love you. All right, y'all. Love always. PBJ.